What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, the #1 Knicks fan in the world. And in today's episode, I got some inspiration from my Bleacher Report family. I was looking up a certain thing about a topic. I'm not going to say because it may be something I still do a video on for NBA Weekly. Wink, wink. And when I was researching that topic, a Bleacher Report article surfaced on my computer. And it said, every X factor for every NBA team. And before I clicked on it, I was like, that sounds like a video idea I should do on NBA Weekly. So I never clicked on the article, and instead I went through every team from the standings, bottom up, from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference, and I picked my X factor for every team, and now we're here. I still have never clicked on that article. So if you watch this video and then you go back and look at the Bleacher Report article, please in the comments, let me know if we have any of the same X factors. My X factors, I think, are going to be a lot different than theirs because for every team, I have a different X factor for every reason. Every team isn't trying to accomplish the same goals or on the same trajectory as far as success. So it's a little different team by team. The first team is the worst team as of whenever I checked the standings, which was the other day. It could be changed now with a night of basketball. It may not be. But when I checked, it was the Pistons. So starting off with the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, the lovely Detroit Pistons, my X factor for them is Killian Hayes. And the reason Killian Hayes is the X factor for them is because the Detroit Pistons are terrible. There is no real X factor as far as wins and losses, and it's nothing that they can do. They have a pretty young, talented roster that they're trying to develop into having one of those great young cores. And I think they would be ahead of schedule or a little bit further with their rebuild if Killian Hayes played like the player that we all expected him to be when the Detroit Pistons drafted him with a top 10 selection. They have Cade Cunningham, who started off slow because of his injuries and whatnot, but has shown flashes on why he was undisputedly the #1 pick. We've seen highlights from Saddiq Bey and good flashes from him being a 3-and-D wing that's going to be able to complement a Cade Cunningham type player. We've even had moments with Isaiah Stewart. I know a lot of people think of Isaiah Stewart and they think of the LeBron James altercation situation. But you have Killian. And if Killian could give you anything of what we expected, they would be one of the best young cores heading into another offseason of probably having a top 5 pick that you would add to this core that they already have. And I think if at any point Killian does start playing how we expect, that the Detroit Pistons could potentially have one of the best young cores. Like, imagine if the Pistons get a top 2 pick and they either get Chet or Paulo to add to Cade Cunningham, Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and then you get Killian Hayes to be exactly what we thought he would be or a little closer to that. That would be one of the best young cores in basketball if we're just being honest with ourselves. So Killian has done some good things. Defensively, I think he's much better than anybody expected. But offensively, he's been a bit disappointing. He doesn't score how I thought he would score. His playmaking on some nights aren't there. He's very laid back and deferring to other teammates who I don't think are as good or as prioritized as he is with the Pistons. The Pistons hierarchy is really him, Cade, Jeremy Grant, I would guess. But even when you look at Jeremy Grant and his timeline with his team, that's a guy that they could get some value back and continue to add to this young core. And I think Killian Hayes is that X factor. If Killian Hayes can get on track, find a way to mesh and coexist with Cade Cunningham, because I think it is a scenario where that does happen. You also bring into the mix Saddiq Bey being a 3-and-D versatile forward. Isaiah Stewart, even if he's not a starting center, I think Isaiah Stewart could be a good backup rotational center somehow, some way. And then you think about them potentially going into the offseason with another top 3, top 5 pick, making Jeremy Grant available and getting some assets back for him. Detroit could, in the next couple of years, have one of the best young cores in basketball before we know it. And then on top of that, you have the prior #1 pick in Cade Cunningham, and we have to expect that he's going to hit some type of stardom. And, if you build properly around him with the rest of the young prospects, you could have your rebuild be moving quicker than we thought. So Killian has to make some growth, scoring the basketball wise, shooting the 3 ball, just being more confident. statistics aside, whenever I've tuned in to Piston games and I watch the Pistons, because I watched them earlier against some teams because I'm a big Jeremy Grant guy, and then I watched them a little after because Cade came back. And even in Summer League, I was saying Killian just didn't look like confident-wise, a guy that felt like he belonged there. And I want him to start going out on that floor feeling superior because the Pistons drafted him 7th overall, I believe, for a reason. So Killian Hayes, for those reasons, is the X factor for the Detroit Pistons, in my opinion. For the Magic, I have Franz Wagner. Magic is a little different. I think Cole Anthony has been fantastic. I think the big man duo of Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter have had some great nights. But I think the emergence of Cole Anthony has kind of hindered Jalen Suggs in some ways. And Jalen Suggs, as of late, has gotten and played a little bit more better than he did at the start. But I think it's a tough transition for Jalen Suggs just because they're kind of playing him at a shooting guard, off ball, on ball sometimes. The guard position is one of the toughest positions to learn. And I think what saved the Magic is them having Franz Wagner, right? It doesn't put all of the pressure on Jalen Suggs to feel like a bust or to be underwhelming. It's not that much attention. When Jalen Suggs has had some bad games, I think it's been hidden a little bit because you have another top 10 pick, Franz Wagner, who's produced. And I think he is going to be a guy that can help the slow process of Jalen Suggs becoming whatever type of player he's going to be for the Magic and allow him to comfortably develop and learn the guard position at a higher level. I am interested to see how things are going to pan out for Orlando because you do have eventually Markelle, Cole, Jalen Suggs, R.J. Hampton. Something's going to have to give. But I am proud and blown away by how Cole Anthony has taken the reins of the guard position. I think he's stood out as their best guard and that the guy that they should roll with. But I am fond of Franz. And I think he's given them a position that they need. Chuma Okeke hasn't had the season I thought he would be. Jonathan Isaac, don't know what to expect with him with the injury history he's having. And then Terrence Ross and Gary Harris are obviously going to be expandable guys in the next year or so. So I think Franz Wagner has given them a position at the wing that they know that they have for their rebuild. You have Cole Anthony guard, Franz Wagner a wing. You have the bigs with Wendell and Mo Bamba. Now you can just let Jalen Suggs come up the way he wants to come up. And then you can continue to draft knowing that you have certain pieces there for the rebuild. Next, we have the Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets X factor for me is Kevin Porter Jr., right? Kevin Porter Jr. is a guy that I had saw some people have as their most improved player. A lot of us in the basketball world was excited because he was taking the reins as the starting point guard. And we thought that experiment would be very fun, very exciting. Him, Jalen Green in the backcourt, Christian Wood in the front court. You got Jayshawn Tate, Şengün, Josh Christopher, Usman Garuba. It was just Phoenix was going to be so fun, and it hasn't been that. And I think part of that is because Kevin Porter Jr. hasn't had a good season, right? The point guard experiment with him hasn't been what we thought it could be. And all around his season has taken a hit from it. I believe all of his numbers are down. He's not shooting the ball well. He's shooting 38% from the field, 36% from the field, 31% from three, 62% from the free throw line. His turnovers are up, his assists are down, and his scoring is down. So this has just been not the best year for Kevin Porter Jr. And it may be because they tried to put him at point guard. Maybe he felt, to not try to get in Jalen Green's way. But I just think him being at the point guard isn't allowing them to flourish as they potentially could in Houston if they did have a John Wall there. I think they're all a bit inefficient as a team, especially that young backcourt. And I think it's because they don't have a floor general or lead guard who's comfortable enough with setting the table for everybody around them and just trying to generate as many easy shots for the rest of the team. So Kevin Porter Jr. is a guy that I think could make their rebuild a little bit more faster. And I think he's a guy that you want to be paired with Jalen Green some type of way. He just has so much potential that you wouldn't want it to just be washed away because of a failed point guard experiment. So hopefully Kevin Porter Jr. can pick it up some type of way. Both of them, all of them, everybody in Houston needs to pick it up. It's been an inefficient mess over there, and I think they have too much talent to not at least be somewhat exciting that we thought they all could be. Pelicans, Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Nikhil Alexander-Walker is a guy that coming into the season, I had high hopes for. The guard position was opening up with Lonzo being gone. Even when I found out that Zion wasn't going to be there at the start of the season, I thought that was more opportunity for him, Ingram, Valanciunas. And Nikhil just hasn't had a good year. He's tied for second in shot attempts for them, so he's getting his looks, 14 shots a game. But he's only shooting 37% from the field and 29% from three. And it's been some games where even Brandon Ingram was hurt. So you don't have Brandon Ingram or Zion. It's really just Devontae Graham, Valanciunas, and Nikhil Alexander-Walker. And there was still nights where I'm like, man, he still isn't having those outbreaks that I thought he would have. So I need Nikhil Alexander-Walker to start to pick it up because there's too much opportunity there for him to not be taking advantage. I'm not sure if there's ever going to be a time like now for Nikhil to put his full abilities on display. You know what I mean? How many teams can Nikhil Alexander-Walker go to and be getting 14 shot attempts? So if you're not making the most of it here, I don't know where else you'll be able to go to get this type of opportunity. And only when Zion comes back, Brandon Ingram is fully healthy, Valanciunas is rolling. When a team is at full capacity, he probably won't be getting 14 shot attempts. You know what I mean? Especially if he's not making most of it right now. So I need Nikhil Alexander-Walker to get on track and help that team out because they wouldn't be as bad as they've been if Nikhil played to his fullest potential, what I think he's capable of. So Nikhil Alexander-Walker for the Pelicans. My next team is Josh Giddey. I think Josh Giddey is the X factor for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I like the backcourt of him and Shea. I love the versatility that it gives the team. Him, Shea, Lou Dort. And I think Josh Giddey's been good. He got to shoot the ball a little bit more better from three, only 25% from three. But I think 10, 7, and 6 across the board are really good numbers for a team that has a number one scoring option like Shea and some good surrounding pieces. But Josh Giddey, I think he can make this team go. I think he can take some pressure off Shea, which only allows Shea to be better. And I think he can generate some easier shot attempts and looks for some of the other guys that they have with his passing ability because Lou Dort is not a guy who's a shot creator. I think Darius Bazley still needs some assistance in his scoring department to try to get him as many easy baskets as he can. And you're playing with guys like Isaiah Roby, all of those different type of guys. And I think Josh Giddey could be the key for them to take on that role and responsibility and allow Shea to have his scoring mentality turned on full max. Because it's certain times where before Giddey was there, Shea had the responsibility of leading them in scoring, but also getting everybody else involved. And it's a hard balance to have. You know what I mean? It's a very, very hard balance and line to toe. So I think bringing Josh Giddey on, adding more size to that front court, and him taking on that responsibility of trying to create easy shots for everybody and allowing Shea to be that aggressive scoring guard is a big help to that team. Even though they have a long way to go with that 73-point loss they had to the Grizzlies without Ja, down the line is what we're looking for the Thunder. It's not about today in the current moment. It's about the future for them. So we got to ease up on them just a little bit with that type of loss. Still unacceptable though. San Antonio, their X factor for me is Jakob. I love what I'm getting from DeJounte Murray. I even love what I'm getting from Keldon Johnson. Some nights Derek White is fabulous next to DeJounte. Lonnie Walker has had moments, but I think the presence that makes them go and makes them as best as they're going to be with this current roster, which isn't constructed to win at a high level, but it's Jakob. Jakob, 63% shooting on the inside. He's giving you 12 and 9. He's a double-double machine. Potential. He has double-double machine potential. But I just feel like when he's gone, you can feel it. You know what I mean? They don't have any type of inside presence at all since they've lost LaMarcus Aldridge. No more Rudy Gay. I really feel like when he's gone and it's Drew Eubanks and guys like that now, it's more felt. So Jakob defensively makes them better. Offensively makes them better. He's a great dump down partner for DeJounte Murray. So I think when he's healthy and he's available, they're still not great, but they're better than what they are when he's not there. And I think if they can find a good four to put next to him, it could open up some things. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Keldon Johnson being a power forward. I'm just not sure yet. I know he plays a 3 and a 4, but I'm not sure if I'm sold on Keldon Johnson being a 4. But I love the production and some of the moments and flashes that I've seen from Jakob Poeltl with the San Antonio Spurs, and I do think he is the X factor for them, because you need somebody, some type of paint presence when you have a team like the San Antonio Spurs. For the Pacers, Karis LeVert. Has to be Karis LeVert. And I know Karis LeVert has been through a lot. His situation last year, I'm not even going to call it an injury, but a scary situation last year that he was able to overcome. So not so scary or down. That's a good thing. He overcame it. Starting off this season with an injury, something with his back. But I just felt like since he's been a Pacer, we haven't had as many of those moments or that production that we were getting when he was a net before the trade. And I think that it's tough for the Pacers because he's somebody who they're supposed to be like, oh, at least we have Karis. They're trying to figure out so much in Indiana, whether you trade Sabonis, trade Miles Turner, trade Brogdon. Obviously, they re-signed and extended Brogdon, so he won't be traded. Karis LeVert was supposed to be the answer to everything. Like, we can start our rebuild because we have this guy. But I don't think the Indiana Pacers have that confidence in him yet, because he hasn't showed it since he's been there. His best basketball of his career and his most memorable flashes have been with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not saying he hasn't had any good performances or any flashes with the Pacers, but it's not as much as we saw with the Nets, and it's not as frequent. And overall, as a basketball player, he's played some of his worst basketball with the Pacers in his professional career. And I think even now with the emergence of Chris Duarte, the extension of Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert could get lost in the shuffle. He got to stay healthy, but then not only being healthy, but when he's out there, he has to produce. He has to produce. It's just plain and simple. Karis LeVert has to produce. His numbers across the board aren't really that impressive. They're a bit down, and they could be better. I think Karis LeVert is better than what we've seen with him with the Pacers, and you can come up with as many excuses as we want, whether it's injuries, this, that, and the third. But the fact of the matter is, he's not producing at the level that I think the Pacers thought they were getting when they were able to get him. He was one of the highlight names, and we all were like, man, the Rockets didn't get Karis LeVert. How the hell did they allow the Pacers to swoop in and come and get him? And I don't know. And the way Chris Duarte is playing, I'm just saying. So Karis LeVert is my X factor for the Indiana Pacers. And I think if Karis LeVert played anything like he did in Brooklyn, the Pacers team would probably be a playoff team, man. They need another guy to start spreading his wings and being that guy and that closer for them. They lost a lot of close games. As good as Brogdon is, Sabonis, Miles Turner, they need somebody who can close out games for them, because they've lost a lot of nail biters, especially to start the year. For the Sacramento Kings, their X factor is De'Aaron Fox for a lot of ways. First and foremost, De'Aaron Fox across the board this year, points, shot attempts, assists, shooting percentages, everything is down for him. And that's not why he's the X factor, though. Because I've even seen De'Aaron Fox play his best version of basketball, like the last couple years before this year, and the Kings still not be on a single thing. Nowhere, you know what I mean? So I think he's the X factor because I think he needs to request a trade. The Sacramento Kings aren't going to trade De'Aaron Fox if he doesn't ask for it. Even if he asks, they probably put up a fight. But I think they need to rebuild this rebuild. They need to reset the reset. This team is atrocious. There's just not one thing that they can do that's going to fix the problems. A new head coach isn't going to solve everything. They've been dysfunctional. They've missed. They've been bad in drafting, free agencies, trades. They can't win anything. They don't win on the court or off the court. So I think they need to redo this entire thing the same way they did with DeMarcus Cousins. They had him. They drafted Willie Cauley-Stein and the Papa whatever. It was just a mess. They missed so many different picks. De'Aaron Fox, same shit. They have a guy, and then they take a top 10 pick, and they draft the guy that's at the same fucking position as him. Why? I have no idea. After Tyrese Halliburton fell in their lap and was a blessing in disguise, they had the chance with Luka and Trey, and they got Marvin Bagley in that situation, not only is he not the player that they aren't, he doesn't even trust them. It's just bad all around. So I think they need to take everything and reset it. Barnes trade, Buddy trade, De'Aaron Fox get traded. Hell, trade Rashawn Holmes to somebody. You take Halliburton and Davion Mitchell if you really believe in those guys, and you just reset the whole damn thing. But it all starts with De'Aaron Fox. You have to let that guy go. He's going to bring you back the most value. You wash your hands, and you just restart. But as long as they keep De'Aaron Fox, they're going to have some false hope of success that we all know just isn't there. So my X factor for the Sacramento Kings is De'Aaron Fox. X factors for the Toronto Raptors. Precious Achiuwa. Listen, Fred VanVleet is playing good basketball. Scotty Barnes is playing well. Gary Trent is playing very good basketball. OG Anunoby, I like what I've seen from Pascal Siakam. They got to get something from their center. And I don't need Precious Achiuwa to be a 15-point scorer. I don't need him to do anything crazy or uncharacteristic. But he cannot be shooting 30% from the field. He cannot be shooting below 40% as a big. Not even 45% I think is acceptable. But I've seen games where Precious Achiuwa is going 1 for 9, 3 for 13, 2 for 8. And it's just unacceptable. They need some type of production from him. They need him to be more efficient, and they need him to just be more of a presence inside and interior. And that's just as simple as it is. Precious Achiuwa has to be better. He showed in his rookie year some flashes of being a productive front court player. And right now with the Toronto Raptors, he's pretty much their only option, but I'm not liking what I've seen or what they've gotten from him. So I need Precious Achiuwa to step it up in some sorts. Next, we have Will Barton of the Denver Nuggets. I think he's their X factor. And I know it might sound crazy because Will Barton is having a career year. But now that we know Michael Porter Jr. is going for the year, Jamal Murray is not coming back anytime soon. And I love what I'm getting from Aaron Gordon defensively and even what he's doing offensively. So I don't want to add any more to his plate. And then Jokic has been playing at the MVP level despite having the MVP success that he had last year with the wins and losses. But I just think Will Barton is, if the time was ever for Will Barton to take his game up to an even higher level, it would be now. And I think he's a guy that's going to be up for the call. He strikes me as a guy that wants you to put as much as you can on his plate because he's going to try to take it up to another notch. Asking any much more from Monte Morris, I think is not realistic. I think if there was anybody else who could already be giving me a lot and take it even a step further, it would be Will Barton. Like I said, he's having a career year, so it's not anything to say he's not producing, but I would just love to see him take it up, and I think he would need to, especially if they're going to try to compete and make the playoffs without two of their most important players. Will Barton is killing it, but I do think if they want to have some type of success, he would be the guy that has to take it up just a little bit more. As unfair as it may sound, just a little bit more from Will Barton. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I know what I'm getting from Karl-Anthony Towns. I know what I'm getting from Anthony Edwards. As much as I love D'Angelo Russell, I need a little bit more consistency for them to be the best team that they can be. He's the point guard. And when I watch them, and he's having his 37-point games, and he's hitting all the biggest shots of the game, and shot creation is at an all. Listen, they're a different team when he's like that. But then I also tune into games, and I see D'Angelo Russell is struggling. He's 3 for 17, and he only has 10 points. That's the D'Angelo Russell that's not going to help them win games. They need D'Angelo Russell to be a part of the top two. He has to be a guy that's going to give you 20 points on any given night and 8 assists. Control the offense and score the basketball and be the guy who can take the big shots and not only take them but make them. When D'Angelo Russell is making those shots and it's playing at that high level, Minnesota Timberwolves are a totally different team. They're a three-headed monster. But those nights where he's struggling and he can't get a feel and he's just not involved, it hurts them significantly. They're going to have nights where Anthony Edwards isn't making shots. You know what I mean? You're going to have to live with that. But D'Angelo Russell, as the point guard, he can't have too many off nights because at the end of the day, his offense and what he does affects everybody else on that team and on the floor. So D'Angelo Russell is my X factor for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Next, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Okay? This answer is a little bit more similar to De'Aaron Fox and the Kings situation because Damian Lillard is my X factor for a bunch of reasons. Obviously, he hasn't been producing the way he usually does because he had an injury. Totally fine. But Dame's going to have to understand, if you're not going to be able to be your best, you should probably chill and get 100%. But besides that, it's time for Portland and Damian Lillard to go separate ways. The president just was fired and let go, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing that each other or each side benefits from being together. The Portland Trailblazers have done and exercised every option that they've had to try to get something out of this marriage. And unfortunately, as much respect, as much as I've loved to follow it and how much I enjoy watching Dame not cheat the grind and give Portland everything he has, I think it's time. And the same thing for Portland. There's no trade that can fix this. Moving CJ McCollum won't be able to fix this, in my opinion. I just don't think he has that much value to come in and astronomically change the Portland Trailblazers if you traded him. Nurkic, Covington, there's no value to change this team if you keep Damian Lillard on it. The only way this team can really change is if you decide to move Damian Lillard. He's their most valuable player. He's going to bring you the most back as far as assets and return. And I just think that they both desperately need to move on. Nobody's going to judge or look at Damian Lillard any different if he requested a trade, because he deserves it for how much he's given to them. But as of right now, they're below 500. The West is better. Teams are continuing to get better. And again, you make a trade like the Larry Nance move, the team gets better, but how much better? Is it enough to continue to do this? It's not. So Damian Lillard is the X factor, because Portland isn't going to trade him unless he comes and asks them for a trade. So it's time that we get Damian Lillard to tell the Portland Trailblazers that it's best if they both go separate ways. They can jumpstart that rebuild, get a bunch of assets. Telling you, it's the best decision for both sides. So my X factor, for different reasons than a lot of other people's, is Damian Lillard. Has to request that trade. For the Philadelphia 76ers, I could have easily made their X factor Ben Simmons, but I think it's not realistic because of all of the drama, all of the shit that's going on this whole time. I just don't see that being fixed or fixed in a good way or like a healthy way that they can really benefit from it. You know, after they apologized and went back, if it wasn't then, it will be never. And they're going to eventually have to trade Ben Simmons. But their X factor is a guy that has to be there now, which is Andre Drummond. And when Joel went down, or when Joel had the protocols situation, Philadelphia was still winning games, and Andre Drummond was playing a good brand of basketball, and I think he needs to keep that up even when Joel is there. He should be one of the best centers, if not establishing himself as the best center to come off the bench, the best backup center in the league. And I think when you have him and Joel, it's going to be hard to give some teams some off time. When Joel goes in the bench, the opposing team shouldn't be just throwing a parade. They should be like, damn, we got to deal with Drummond too. And I think when it comes to the playoffs, slowing the pace down, valuing every single possession is where Andre Drummond can really, really take his value to another level for the Philadelphia 76ers. And you want Joel to be fresh. You want him to be ready to go during the playoffs, and to have a backup like Drummond that can fill in on any given night as their starting center is going to be very beneficial for them in a long-term sense. So I'm making Andre Drummond my X factor for the Philadelphia 76ers. Clippers, their X factor is Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard isn't doing anything bad. He's not a bad player. He's shooting the ball very good. I just need Luke Kennard to shoot the ball more. He has to shoot the ball more. He's a 42% shooter. He gets a fair amount, but I think it's time for him to take it up just a notch. He has to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. 8 and 10 points is just not good. He should be between 13 and 15 point scorer. He has to be aggressive. It opens up so much of the floor for Paul George, Eric Bledsoe, Reggie Jackson, all of the guys that usually have the basketball. Him being an aggressive sniper, it only opens up the rest of the floor for the rest of the guys. And we saw it last year during their playoff run when he started to make shots, or when he started to get minutes and put that pressure on the defense. They had a lot of success as a team. A lot of success. So my X factor for the Clippers is Luke Kennard, without a doubt. Just need him to be a little bit more aggressive with shooting the ball. Lakers, Los Angeles Lakers, probably the most anticipated team on this list that everybody came to hear. Their X factor is different. It's not a coach. It's not a player. It's Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka is the X factor for the Los Angeles Lakers for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, I really don't think it's any adjustments that Frank Vogel can make. I was a guy that was saying, man, maybe Frank, he got to shake it up and do something different. And he got to the point where he had no choice and he was doing things differently. And they were still getting the same results. And at this point, I'm fully convinced that it's just what the roster is. We all came into this league, into the season thinking, man, what are the Lakers going to do? Because besides the age part of it that everybody was pointing out, the fit, the continuity on this roster, when you look at it just on paper, it tells you that it's not going to be a perfect fit. So now that we've gotten the results and we see that they don't fit, we've watched the film, we watched the offense, we watched the defense. There's nothing Frank Vogel could do because he only has what he has on the roster. Rob Pelinka has to make a move. I don't know what move is out there. I don't know what he's going to be able to do. But this situation and this roster as constructed is not a winning roster. Not a winning roster at all. And they're a team that are a championship or bust type of team. And right now, I'm trying to figure out how they can get out of the first round, personally. So, Rob Pelinka, you got to pick up that phone. You got to get active. You got to turn water to wine because this current Laker team ain't it. The Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. has played a lot of great basketball as of late since Ja Morant has been down. When I talked about the Thunder, they just beat them by 73 points without Ja. But I want to see this type of Jaren Jackson when Ja's there. The Memphis Grizzlies are supposed to be a two-headed monster. It's supposed to be Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson. Over the last few years, because of injury, and even when he's been healthy, I just don't get that same sense that it's Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson. It's mostly become the Ja Morant show. And I kind of feel like Jaren Jackson kind of just fell to the wayside, and he's a guy that people love the idea of, but not the actual production, because he's shooting the ball, but he's not rebounding as much. Doesn't really, take advantage of mismatches. And if he's not making shots from the perimeter, he's kind of obsolete on the offensive end of the floor. So I want to see Jaren Jackson continue to be this confident guy, even when Ja Morant is there. Because like I said, they're only going to be better if it's a two-headed monster instead of just the Ja Morant show. So hopefully he can take some of his time with Ja out, establish himself, get some confidence. And when Ja returns, they can be that deadly duo that we all thought they would be when they were first assembled in Memphis. So Jaren Jackson is my X factor for the Grizzlies. For the Knicks is R.J. Baird. R.J. Baird is not having the same type of year he had last year, though he's been better defensively and has given the Knicks some type of defensive wing or whatnot. I think offensively the Knicks are taking hits, and we're becoming a little bit more predictable because I think it's just like the Julius Randle show when it comes down to closing games, which could be outside of R.J. Barrett, but I just think that we need a secondary guy. Evan Fournier has been solid, but I don't think he's been that. Derrick Rose is some nights. Alec Burks has been some nights. Evan Fournier has been in some nights. But this team was constructed, and when I talk to Knicks fans and we talk about R.J. Barrett, that's supposed to be his job, and I need R.J. Barrett to get to that. Because if not, the Knicks are going to run into some of the same issues that they ran into unless they get a star. And when you talk to Knicks fans about trying to get a Damian Lillard, trying to get somebody, they'll tell you that they don't want to trade R.J. Barrett. So if we're going to keep R.J. Barrett, we're not going to try to get a Damian Lillard. We're not going to try to make some type of trade. R.J. Barrett has to elevate. He can't play the same. His year is kind of the same as last year, numbers-wise, except he's not shooting as good. The defenses went up, but he has to continue to evolve and become better and better and better. We can't just get RJ to be stagnant, not this early in his career. It's time for RJ to take another step and another leap, and that's going to get us where we need to go. Hashtag Knicks tape. Almost skipped some teams. Hornets, Mason Plumlee. Just Mason Plumlee. The Hornets just need some type of impact on the interior. Just some type of interior presence. So Mason Plumlee, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I don't need Mason Plumlee to be out of this world, but if Mason Plumlee can play somewhat similar to what he did last year for the Pistons, I think the Hornets would be fine. But everybody's on their thing that's a perimeter player. They just need some type of production on the interior. So I'm calling out Mason Plumlee for that. X factor for the Hornets, Mason Plumlee, unless they can make some type of deal. The Hawks, the young wings. One of their young wings has to grow from the nest and start to blossom. They're all just solid as of right now. Hunter, he's just solid, but he's always hurt. Herter, solid, had a good playoff run, but overall it's just solid. Cam Reddish, solid. One of those guys has to just leave from the pack and spread their wings and become to the head of the crop so that they can make some decisions with the other two, because they have so many assets that I think they could be a team that could be aggressive to make some type of move. And I think it all starts with one of those wings separating themselves from the rest of them to say, hey, I'm the one that you keep. The other two, you package up and you move away from. So the wings as a collective out there in Atlanta. For the Celtics, it's Jaylen Brown. And the reason it's Jaylen Brown, just because Jaylen Brown hasn't been available. Some injuries here, protocol there. And I think with the current roster that they have, they need him and Jason Tatum to be available as much as possible. And he's going through a slump when he came back after coming out the gates on fire. They need Jaylen Brown to get back on track because they have no time to dig themselves in a hole. The East is a lot better than it's normally been, and if you don't come to play when it comes down to playoff time, you might be looking at from the outside in by just a single game or two. So Jaylen Brown got to get back in the flow, got to pick it up and get right back on track the way that he did to enter the season, because they're not built like they've been in the past. They need Tatum and Brown on a night by night basis. So Jaylen Brown is my X factor for the Boston Celtics. For the Cavaliers, I'm going to just say Isaac Okoro, just because I like what a lot of the young talent has done, but I just think that wing is missing from them. And he's the wing. He was their lottery pick, early lottery pick, top 10 pick, and the offense hasn't improved at all, really. And I think they need that from him because the defensive side of the basketball is where he does his best. But yeah, they need Isaac Okoro to step up. They need it. Lauri Markkanen is not a small forward. Darius Garland is improved. Evan Mobley is rookie of the year conversations. Jared Allen. Colin Sexton is out for the season. Isaac Okoro got to step up sooner than later for the Cavaliers. The Mavericks, Tim Hardaway Jr. got a bag. And he hasn't been shooting the three ball as effective as he was last year. And I just think that he's the driving force for that. You know what you're going to get from Luka. Seems like KP is back to his old type of ways of sorts. So that's been better. But I think the X factor is Tim Hardaway Jr. When he's making shots, especially from three, when he was lighting up the Clippers last year in the playoffs, even when they had Kawhi, they were unbeatable. They were unstoppable. And they're going to need that to be him. That's what they paid him to be. So Tim Hardaway Jr., come on. You got Jalen Brunson being just as productive with lesser minutes, lesser opportunities on the offensive end. So you got to start taking advantage of those opportunities that you're getting. And that's why he's my X factor, man. The Mavericks are a different team when Tim Hardaway Jr. is making shots. Same thing for the Heat. Duncan Robinson, they paid you the money, and they're a different team when you're making shots. Right now, the Duncan Robinson that we getting got the Heat looking very, very crazy. He has to start making some type of shots. And I know this slump and these numbers and these shots won't keep falling for the rest of the way. Come playoff time, Duncan Robinson probably going to be scorching hot. Somebody clip this. I got to look at the time because I want to know where I said this at. Somebody clip this so I can know to have it in my portfolio. So when playoff time come around and he start catching fire, I know to come get my receipts. Speaking of fire, the Bucks, Grayson Allen. I think Grayson Allen is becoming an X factor for them. The way he's shooting the ball, when Giannis is driving, to have a guy like Grayson Allen to kick it out to, when you still do have Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, floor space, and especially since they lost Brent Forbes, Grayson Allen is picking up and filling that void and that hole. Still haven't seen Dante DiVincenzo. Grayson Allen has been one of the most underrated pickups from a contending team that we haven't talked about a lot. And I think him and the Bucks deserve a lot of conversation and a lot of credit because he has been big for them. Grayson Allen, X factor for the Bucks. Chicago Bulls, Nikola Vucevic, like we saw the other night against the Knicks when the Knicks and Bulls played. He made 5 or 6 threes. It's game changing. It's literally game changing when he's able to be a productive big man for them. Rebound, a little bit more better defensively. He had some plays where Julius Randle just went right at him. Won't be acceptable in the playoffs. But DeMar DeRozan hoops, Zach LaVine hoops. Lonzo Ball is killing it from 3. Caruso is great defensively. Patrick Williams is gone. They're going to need Vucevic to be exactly that third all-star player between Zach, him, and DeMar because the others are doing what they do as complementary players. They're going to need Vooch. Now, for the Washington Wizards, my team that I predicted to be a guaranteed playoff team who surprised the NBA and a lot of people who thought I was crazy for saying that. Their X factor has been Montrezl Harrell. He's down there been the MVP. In a year where Bradley Beal isn't doing normal scoring things that we've seen from him over the last few years, he's still been playing good basketball, kind of doing a little bit of everything instead of just focusing on scoring. A lot more depth to this team, but the inside presence that was looked at as a void because Thomas Bryant is gone and whatnot, Montrez has picked it up. You know what I mean? Montrezl Harrell is playing some very good basketball, and on some nights, he's their best player. And obviously, when it comes playoff time, if they want to keep this up to being a playoff team, they're going to need him to continue it. Kuzma's been very good. Spencer Dinwiddie's been solid. Obviously, Bradley Beal is a former, leading scorer of the league. You got some vets like Caldwell Pope, Bertans. They still haven't even had Rui Hachimura back. Montrezl Harrell thus far has been their X factor. And I think going forward could be their X factor. When Rui comes back, it's going to be interesting to see if he becomes the X factor. But if right now I had to pick any X factor for the Wizards, Montrezl Harrell by far X factor and MVP on some nights. But he's helped the Wizards a lot. He's been playing phenomenal basketball for them. The Utah Jazz, I'm going to say the bench. Their X factor is the bench. Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles, two guys who battled last year for the Sixth Man of the Year award, haven't had the same type of years as they had last year. But I think Eric Pascal, Rudy Gay gives them a little bit more depth, and it makes them a better, well-rounded overall bench. Hassan Whiteside. So I'm looking for their bench to step up, especially come playoff time, and make them be a different team. We've seen the Jazz run into the same type of problems year in and year out in the playoffs over the last couple of years. I'm putting my money on the Jazz to be a little bit more different, and partly it's because of that bench. So hopefully when we get there, we can see some different results for them, because I just think that overall they're a better complete team because of the additions that they made to that bench. So the Utah Jazz, that bench, I'm going to be watching. Y'all are the X Factor. Do not let me down, man, because I've been very critical of the Jazz. But this one year, I feel it in my bones. There's something different about that team, man. Trust me, the Utah Jazz, that bench. Last few teams, Brooklyn Nets. I could easily, just like the Ben Simmons situation, put Kyrie Irving. But in this situation, I'm realistically speaking, I don't think Kyrie is coming back because I don't think he's going to get vaccinated. And I don't know how sure or how aggressive the Nets will be when it comes to looking to trade him, because he's buddies with Kevin Durant and James Harden. And essentially, Kevin Durant is the whole reason Kyrie is the whole reason Kevin Durant is even there. So it's very complicated. So I'm going to just say James Harden. James Harden spoke about trying to figure out the passing and when to be aggressive in scoring. The foul calls has been a thing early in the year. He spent this whole summer rehabbing. I'm going to take his word for everything because it's James Harden. But at some point, James Harden has to be back to that MVP. Because if he is, you have him and Kevin Durant, who's playing like a current MVP right now. And when those two are at the top of their game, I don't know how they're going to be beaten, even without Kyrie Irving. With Kyrie Irving, they were unbeatable, it looked like, because offensively, who was going to stop them? But now you take Kyrie Irving out, and if you just make James Harden be the MVP that he was with Kevin Durant, I mean, the Bucks barely almost lost to this team single-handedly with Kevin Durant. James Harden was on one hamstring. There was no Kyrie Irving. So you then give them James Harden healthy at MVP level. Oh, man. Good night for the NBA. So James Harden is my X factor for the Brooklyn Nets. The Warriors. Jordan Poole. And the reason I say Jordan Poole is because eventually what's going to happen is Klay Thompson is going to come back. Slowly but surely, however, he's going to come back. He's going to be the starting shooting guard. Jordan Poole is going to be moved to the bench. Can Jordan Poole have the same or similar type of impact in a lesser role? Right now, he's a starter. A lot of shot opportunities. He's coming, like I said, he's starting, so he's out of the gate with it. A lot more opportunity. But if his minutes get shaved a little bit because Klay back, shot attempts get shaved away a little back, opportunity gets shaved back a little bit because Klay's back, can he still be impactful and valuable to the Warriors? Because what Jordan Poole gives them, I think they need. And if they can get it then when Klay is back off the bench, it's going to be scary. But can Jordan Poole still be effective with lesser minutes, lesser opportunity, lesser role when Klay Thompson comes back. That is yet to be seen, but Jordan Poole for that time will be my X factor for the Golden State Warriors. And then last but not least, the Phoenix Suns. Their X factor is always the same, DeAndre Ayton. Last year in the playoffs, DeAndre Ayton was magnificent. I was saying, man, if he continues to play like this for the rest of the playoffs, then they win a championship or some shit, we're going to have to consider this dude a top 5 center. That's how well he was playing. But we still get those moments from Ayton where he plays like a top 5 center, then the very next night he doesn't. We know what we're getting from CP3. We know what we're getting from Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, surrounding pieces, campaign off the bench, Cam Johnson. DeAndre Ayton makes this team completely different when he plays to his fullest potential. And I even heard Chris Paul say in the post-game interview, says I'm hard on him sometimes because I know what he's capable of. And I think the rest of them in that locker room know if we get the best version of DeAndre Ayton, we are a contending team. And for me, that's always been the thing. I believe fully in Book. I believe fully in CP3. I believe fully in Monty Williams. But Ayton has to show me on a night-in, night basis, he is one of the best bigs and centers in the game. And if he comes with that mentality, he plays like that, he's the anchor of the defense, he makes teams pay on the offensive side, then the Suns can have the same type of success that they had last season. So my X factor for them is DeAndre Ayton. This was a long video, crazy video, longer than I expected as I'm looking at the time roll by. But I appreciate everybody who stayed out and watched and completed the entire video. If you're new, definitely subscribe. Leave in the comments what you think these teams' X factors are, because I know we have a lot of differences, I'm sure. And like I said earlier, if you watched the Bleacher Report or read the Bleacher Report article, please let me know some of the ones that they put. I'm not going to read it. I've made up my mind. I'm going to let you guys tell me what's the same or what's different. But as always, this is NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug. I will see you guys next time. Peace.